Spags, we are live for another Best Ball Mania 4 doubleheader today on my channel and the Splash Play channel. Drafts number 49 in a monumental 50th draft today for me, Spags.
I am very excited to be a part of draft number 50 for Pete. I'm, in fact, multi-tabling drafts right now because we tried to get in right before the show started. But, Pete, 50 drafts is a pretty big milestone for you. You've kept your sanity. I would say, surprisingly, I'm proud of you, how well you've been able to do that. But how are you feeling, I guess, with almost a third of your drafts done?
I'm feeling good. Last week I had a moment. It was when I did the cardio club draft on the Swolecast, and I was literally just exhausted that day. I had done a walk earlier that day. I did a workout, and then that cardio club one, and I was like, I need the summer to be over now. But you know what? I got some sleep, some rest over the weekend, and now I'm feeling energized here. 1/3 of the way done. It's gonna feel good. I feel like I'm at a good pace. I feel like I haven't fully burned out yet.
Are there any player takey things, any dearth of guys that you're trying to clean up down the home stretch? Because I'm at the same rate as you, roughly. I think this is going to be my 53rd or 54th, something like that today. So I've started to think a little bit like, okay, obviously we know the AR thing. I've dug my heels in there. That's probably not going to change. But still, like, are there any players that you haven't gotten any of that you're like, I need to start to prioritize them now that we are, again, only 2/3 left?
Yeah, I am. Someone had asked me in the comments, am I now starting to think about my exposures? And I think I am starting to think about it a little bit more. One I mentioned was I want some more Darren Waller. I realized the other day I actually need to refresh my exposures on him. I got my first share the other day, but that was a blind spot in my portfolio. I was looking at some stuff with how I was attacking the Bears running back room and was realizing I had a little more Khalil Herbert than I wanted relative to how much Roshan Johnson. So I am starting to look at some of these, inadvertent stands I've made and figuring out how can I kind of correct in like a subtle way, right? Like, not like I'm just going to start going at drafts and smashing a guy, but just kind of putting that in the back of my head of like, hey, I want to make sure I'm breaking ties in favor of this guy going forward.
Yeah, I think the Bears one is definitely a noteworthy one to think about, but there is a lot of those kind of choose your own adventure backfields that we're going to find out about. And I would say definitely being mindful of that stuff. I would think, Pete, the one thing that I've always kind of held near and dear is you probably don't have to worry about it until like August. But I think being mindful of it throughout the summer is probably an important part because we all kind of get take locked in some of the clicks that we make.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like having my exposure up. I like reviewing it just as a little bit of a sanity check. And there are going to be some guys that I'll continue to click. I clicked Mike Evans again yesterday. There's some guys that I'm perfectly fine, being in that 15 to 20% range on. Tyler Lockett, 21%, Evans 15. So there are guys that I don't mind being overweight on, but just the way I draft, I'm probably not going to end up much higher than like 25% on anyone by the time the season's over.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are also picking at the back half of the round here. I know you've had a good amount of the streams that I've been on with you. You're picking towards back half of drafts, but this kind of strategy, is there anything coming in for you with the 11 hole and that I could steal for myself in the 12 and 13 hole?
Well, yesterday I don't know if it was my first or second best ball breakfast draft, but I was picking from the turn, and did kind of one of my classic wide receiver starts, avoiding, the avalanche, grab CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. And then it was such a wide receiver heavy room that I was able to get Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall at the 3-4 turn. So I basically am not taking running backs in these piss boy rooms from this spot, just knowing I might get one of these guys really sliding down far. So that's just kind of something I've realized for this specific draft slot in these specific rooms. So even though I like Eckler, I'm probably just not going to mess around with that and grab a Garrett Wilson share here.
Okay, good. So I still have 2 receivers left for me to take here then, and would have loved if I could have gotten Garrett Wilson there. I've been trying to get my exposure up to him a little bit, but I am going to take Amon-Ra and Jalen Waddle, who I've seen Pete recently jumping those guys in some drafts, which is kind of, I think is right, but I think it's interesting that Waddle's going that highly.
Yeah. I think I do really like Waddle. I do think he's kind of a cut below. I think you could make the argument that this tier right here, the 4 wide receivers we just all took in a row, that are all kind of in a same tier, and then I put Lamb and Devontae Adams just in a slight tier above their own, and then probably Brown and Diggs in their own tier, and then these other guys. So I do find that there's some mini tiers here with these wide receivers, but really what we're doing here is just making decisions specific to this room and knowing how this is going to play out.
Does it just kind of conceptually seem insane to you that Waddle, who could make a leap this year and be more of a 1B to Tyreek Hill's 1A, but like he's fundamentally a number 2 receiver. I feel the same way about Devonta Smith, that he could be kind of a 1B to AJ Brown's 1A. And T. Higgins, I think, was better in a lot of metrics than Jamar Chase was last year. I've talked about the DVOA numbers, EPA numbers, all of that. And obviously, when you have a great receiver, that's going to inflate it. But those guys all kind of should be viewed similarly. So why is Waddle the one that's jumping up? Is it just the Dolphins pass rate stuff?
I'm not sure. And I guess what is his actual ADP at right now? Because 16, I don't know if he's actually in normal drafts really jumping up. I think it's in these streamer wide receiver avalanche rooms where he naturally gets pushed up because people look around and someone's going to grab T. Higgins here in a second. And then there's a pretty big drop off. But to your larger point, I do. And someone who's really good at this is Sean Siegel, who I draft with on Wednesdays. He really likes playing these offenses through the cheaper option. And he's had a lot of success doing it over the years. The year everyone was in on Brandon Ayuk a couple years ago, and he was going in the 4th, he was hammering Deebo Samuel. Last year, when everyone loved AJ Brown, had he go over to the Eagles, he was hammering Devonta Smith and basically saying, hey, the talent gap between these guys often isn't as big as we maybe think. And then you see a season play out like last year where Devonta Smith is like a co-1A essentially with AJ Brown down the stretch. And I do think there are some spots this year where that plays out. And it's one of the reasons Sean is super low on DK Metcalf relative to JSN, why he's super low on Mike Williams relative to Quentin Johnston, of like, hey, we like these offenses and we like these profiles late too. Let's just play it through the cheaper option, knowing the room for error there is greater. You have more of a safety net when you're taking that stab in the 5th, 6th, 7th round than when you're spending a late 2nd round pick on DK Metcalf.
I think that makes sense. And I think too, even for the week 17 of it all, like you would sort of expect the higher draft receiver to be better represented in those finals pools. Obviously that wouldn't be the case if like Waddle went off and Tyreek Hill got hurt or something. But for the leverage, you have then a 1st round pick that could theoretically beat Tyreek. And if Waddle can also beat Tyreek, then you're kind of getting it on 2 ways. So I think there's some game theory logic to it too, but I just think it's interesting that Waddle gets treated a little bit differently, because I actually have seen him go 11, 12 in some drafts, not streamed. And I've been surprised, but like, I like him a lot. I just know that guys like Hayden Winks out there, of course, of Underdog, have kind of knocked down his expected touchdown rate, and that being so much higher last year than it probably would be in a normal year.
Right. We're about to pick here. No insane sliding values in this room like we got in the other. I'm going to let Alex pick and do a little coffee pour here for the people while I decide what I want to do.
I'll soak that in.
Soak it in. So we do, one thing I might, let's see. So I kind of have 2 options here that I'm thinking through. Sometimes I do like to I thought if I had Waddle, I might take Lamar, set up a little week 17 there, but I'm going to keep hammering a guy I like a lot here in Keenan Allen instead.
So I do have 2 picks here. I am of course, going in both drafts. The multi-table that I got into from entering right before the draft. I'm going to take Lamar in this room. I'm going to go back here, take Christian Watson in my other draft. For my second pick, though, so Lamar, of course, taken for a little bit of that correlation with Jalen Waddle. Would have been nice if Mark Andrews had fallen, but that's not going to happen. And I'm going to take a guy that I take a lot of, and I will continue to do so, Christian Watson, who, Pete, so his ADP is up. I've seen him fall to the mid 40s now, and I'm a little worried that the casuals don't like Christian Watson as much as I do.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I think Christian Watson is one of those quintessential, like, sexy players. Like, he's fun to click. He was so good last year. And I think maybe casuals are worried about the Packers offense without Rodgers. I think that would be the casual take of, hey, Christian Watson was good with Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback. How's he going to be with Jordan Love? Where I think a lot of the sharps are pretty in on Green Bay as being kind of a sneaky good offense this year. And that's why his ADP is just kind of stuck there. And he also, I would put him at the top of this really flat wide receiver tier here, right? Like starting with Amari Cooper, like all of these guys, I think you could reshuffle around. If someone made a really good case for any of these guys, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He should be the first one off the board. And I would say that Watson is just probably the funnest of those clicks. And that's why he's just kind of a fixture now of the, early 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a little, I wouldn't say alarmed, but not great camp reports so far from Jordan Love. Apparently has a lot of issues throwing on the run, which is part of what you would hope would be an improvement for him, is being a little more mobile and being able to do those kind of plays. But Watson was just so good last year, and like that, good with a slow ramp up. Like he was hurt to start the year, missed some of camp, missed some of the games. And then he was so electric that, with him being just this kind of default wide receiver one target in an offense that I think, is going to be in a division that's not that great. I think Watson's worth it. And I see guys like Star Kindler in the chat here saying a near full fade for Watson. That surprises me just because I think he is both kind of young and a sexy click, but also just like who else are they going to throw to there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Watson is the exact kind of profile I want to continue to bet on. And, I get the sticker shock thing. In previous years, Christian Watson would probably be a 6th, 7th round pick. In the same way in previous years, JSN would be a 9th round pick. And so it does stink that you're having to pay these prices, but this is the thought exercise I always do. And this kind of goes back to how we were talking about playing some of the other offenses through the cheaper piece. Would it shock you if Christian Watson is a 2nd round pick next year? Wouldn't
No.
shock me whatsoever. In fact, that's where I most likely think he ends up. And so those are the kind of movements I'm trying to get on. Who are these guys where I think they could be more expensive next year? And that's why you run into problems with DK Metcalf. Like, it's kind of hard for me to imagine DK Metcalf being much more expensive than he is this year, next year, where I could see JSN being a 2nd round pick. Like, no doubt. And how does he end up a 2nd round pick? Well, he's scorching the earth down the stretch. How does Christian Watson end up there? He has another massive, 12 plus TD, season campaign here with Jordan Love. And so I love making a bet on those profiles of the guys who can really outperform their draft cost.
And Pete, of course, you're leaving out the Ewing theory of Aaron Rodgers leaving, which we all can hold dear as people that read Bill Simmons columns back in the early 2000s. And I have to tell you, Pete, I know we made fun of Bill Simmons at one point in our splash play run, just because, when you grow up listening to a guy and then they kind of fall a bit out of touch, whatever, it's fun to tease him a little bit. I'm not even listening anymore, which I think worries me a little bit about, I don't know, just Bill Simmons. Like, I wonder how he's doing. Are his takes still good? Are you listening to his show at all anymore? Or you've been out for like years, right?
Yeah, I've been out for years. I mean, like so many people, I, came up just consuming all of his stuff, reading his columns. I was the Grantland launch hit me at like the perfect time. And all of those writers over there, Jay Caspian King, Bill Barnwell, obviously, I just thought that was such an incredible assembly of talent. And I loved their kind of approach to long form and even their podcast network too. I thought they just did a really nice job with. And then I don't know, there was something about the transition from Grantland to the Ringer. And I still they have so many talented people over there, but they kind of went almost like the blitzkrieg of content, that old blog style of like, we're just going to throw so much at you. And the Grantland pieces always felt so special. Like when they came out, I wanted to devote my time to it. And yeah, so now the Ringer fire hose, I have a hard time keeping up with it these days.
Yeah, that makes sense. And definitely a different site, but a lot of money for Bill Simmons. So kudos to him. All right. I'm on the clock in my other room, so I got to get this pick out of the way fast. It is stressful, Pete. The multi-tabling of BBMs, like I multi-table puppies all the time, but BBMs at the same time are just a different level.
Yeah. Man, I have 2 really interesting picks that I'm excited to make here. It feels weird to pass on TJ Hawkinson, but God, I love Kenneth Walker as an anchor RB here in the late 5th. So I will let you have TJ.
All right. Man, TJ. Yeah, you know what? It makes sense with the Green Bay correlation, so I will take him with one of these picks. And I will also go with a little bit of QB running back correlation. Should point out, J.K. Dobbins not getting the reporting that Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs are, but J.K. Dobbins also not in camp so far and kind of mini holdout. He's on the franchise tag thing, but does want money. So I don't know if this is making him fall a little bit in ADP, but him at 61 feels pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that made sense for you with that pick. I'm trying to see, do I want to kind of build out a Seattle thing with Lockett, or do I want to grab Aaron Jones in this range? You know what? I'm going to do Aaron Jones. I've been trying to experiment a little bit with these different kind of textures, and one of them being like, all right, a double anchor RB room, but from a range where I'm almost never taking 2 running backs, and just kind of, again, letting that structure that I feel works play into my favor while also getting it paired with running backs. Like maybe sometimes I'll take just Kenneth Walker, maybe sometimes I'll take just Aaron Jones, but I'm never selecting both of them together. So both of them after ADP here, I would have loved to have gotten Hawkinson and Kenneth Walker, but too much value for you to let that one slip back through.
And I would say too for Aaron Jones, like I just find it so much more comfortable to take AJ Dillon, coming 50 picks later or so. It was something I did. I drafted a Packers stack on my Spag stacks on Fridays where I spin the wheel that I came up with, of course. That didn't see it on the randomizer and go, that's a great looking wheel. Let me get that on a stream. But I spin a wheel basically with every team on it, landed on the Packers. And I took Aaron Jones. And if I didn't take Aaron Jones, I felt like I would have liked the team a lot more. But I do think there's probably a good amount of people then that are stacking Packers and feel the same way. So just any taste of Aaron Jones, I think, are inherently putting you on a little bit of a different track just because Dillon is so much cheaper.
Yeah, and the way I think about it is, AJ Dillon, I feel like is really a bigger macro bet on the Packers being really good this year or taking a leap, and he's going to soak up a lot of those goal line stuff. The thing about Aaron Jones, right, is we know he has the ability still to rip off 50-yard big touchdown plays and have those kind of monster games. So Aaron Jones is kind of a spike week chasing kind of play in that range is how I feel about him. And just knowing, hey, if you show up in the fantasy playoffs and the Packers are good, knowing that Aaron Jones has the ability to go for a monster game is pretty exciting. And again, thinking back, both Kenneth Walker and Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker before they drafted Charbonnet, second round pick. Aaron Jones has been a second round pick in previous years. So kind of buying the dip on these talent profiles who you're now getting at a pretty big discount relative to where we've seen them go in previous times.
Also, too, while we're kind of hyping up Minnesota Green Bay, just the fact that that's a Week 17 game in a dome with two defenses that we don't expect. I mean, Minnesota should be a little better, but wasn't very good last year, and they're also dealing with some guys, holding out in camp and all that. So that seems not the best for them. But the issue of Brian Flores, I think maybe gets them closer to the middle of the pack. But it's in a dome, and I think those teams will probably not be world beaters defensively. So I think that holds a lot of weight too. Even if the Packers were to somehow underperform throughout the year, I think they're a team that just for having a Week 17, like to me, they're as live as any. Obviously, they're all live at this point, but particularly one of interest for me.
Yeah, and when you look at, and I'm going to start, I think I'm going to do this a little bit with Brian on Lulz this week. We've been looking at the fantasy playoff schedule, specifically looking at weather, dome games, strength of schedule stuff. And as we've been digging into that, both the Packers and Vikings grade out very well for different reasons. Obviously, Minnesota with the dome games, Green Bay, because their strength of schedule in the playoffs is actually much easier than their schedule in the regular season, which I think is kind of notable. I am going to grab the very end of my wide receiver tier. I'm sorry to snipe you on Lamar Jackson. It's nothing personal. It is strictly Bateman and then a giant tier for me at wide receiver.
Oh, dag nabbit. Okay. I am 2 picks here. No correlations. I do need to get some receivers in because now we have kind of gotten hit by the avalanche. I'm going to take Michael Thomas and Zay Flowers went. Yeah, Zay Flowers went already. Crap. It doesn't feel like a reach for Odell's spot, I would say. I still think that Juju is underrated in these kind of teams. And, until DeAndre Hopkins is there, I will continue to feel that way. So I'll reach for Juju. But that was a tough pocket. I did not enjoy those 2 picks there.
Yeah, that's the wide receiver avalanche room here. I'm going to grab another guy that I don't get a lot of, DeAndre Swift, grabbing him 10 picks past ADP. Some negative chatter on Rashad Penny these days, might open the season on IR. There obviously some other guys going to have early down roll. If that happens, you'll probably see a lot of Boston Scott, but kind of some of that negativity around Penny's giving me a little bit more confidence on DeAndre Swift having a pretty big role there for that team. And the other thing I'm thinking through here is, so this is an unusual build for me because I don't have a QB or tight end, because I have a lot of quarterback options, Russ, Olave, Garrett Wilson, even Swift, Geno, and Love. These quarterbacks all go in a range where I'm generally taking 0 RB candidates. And so I'm kind of thinking of flipping the build, so to speak, where now I'm taking some running backs in this range to free me up to actually taking quarterbacks in the range I normally grab 0 running back targets there. So it's going to end up, I'm sliding up my running back targets more than I normally do, but I think it will work out like value pocket wise to allow me to select quarterbacks in that range.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was doing in a draft last night where I had Garrett Wilson and some other players. Basically had what you have, like a bunch of QBs who go later in the draft, and I had some flexibility. And I took Aaron Rodgers a little bit ahead of ADP just because I was like, well, I don't want to let him slip, and I'm kind of making the bet on Garrett Wilson here. But I think that's one of the things where you can kind of hurt yourself by you giving yourself that flexibility and not taking advantage of it and not waiting for, Derek Carr or Kenny Pickett or whatever and those kind of builds. So like the flexibility I think is a positive because it allows you kind of to work through them a little better than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what else is, and this goes back to kind of what happens in these rooms, right? So, you and I had to reach, or, I reach a little bit ahead of ADP, right? Garrett Wilson, 2 picks ahead of ADP, Chris Olave. And, sometimes like, it doesn't feel good. Like I essentially didn't have a first round pick in this draft, right? Where it's like I took 2 second round selections, but then I feel like I claw back on the ADP value. And I've been getting a lot of comments too on my streams of like the wide receiver avalanche. Why do you do this to yourself? I do really think the ADP value is completely offset. I get Walker 8 picks past, Aaron Jones 8 picks past, DeAndre Swift 7 or 10 picks past. And so I do think if you're offsetting it there, it really is kind of, 6.5 dozen or the other.
Yeah, for me, still the main thing that always rings true is just trying to make sure I get those 5 receivers before round 10. So as long as I'm, taking some elite deviations here, where I took Lamar, I took Dobbins, took Hawkinson, and Dobbins and Hawkinson were both at really big discounts. I feel okay reaching for Thomas and Juju just because I think they're the final guys I can have in that 5 wide receivers before round 10 build that I would feel okay with bottoming out. So I don't know. I think we both worked this well, but that room really dried out fast for receiver in a way I was perhaps I thought we escaped, and then we did not.
Well, I've been talking about this too. This wide receiver, generally, like in a normal room, like the Bateman, Zay Flowers guys can hang around to this turn. And like a Lamar drafter from the 12 hole. This is what happened when I drafted with Hertzik on ETR. We had the 12, we got Lamar, and then we were able to double tap Bateman and Flowers at pick 84 and 85. That will happen in normal rooms. But in these rooms, like in my drafts, they can all be gone by pick 70, 75. This one, I felt kind of lucky getting Bateman here at 83. Alex, I think, had an interesting choice because I was going to gobble up Waller if he fell to 83. He takes Waller and gives me Bateman there, but happy to get that 5th wide receiver. Let's see. What do we want to do here? I think what I am going to do is grab a tight end selection here. I don't think I want to be on like a 3 quarterback, 3 tight end build. Njoku, a couple picks past ADP, correlated with my first round pick of Garrett Wilson. Nothing else really screaming out at me here. And then you're going to have an interesting choice if you want to go Tua there and play your week 17 game from both sides of the quarterback aisle.
Yeah, I don't mind that as much, especially when it's 2 teams like Baltimore and Miami that I do think are going to be good this year and have the ability to create value. So right away, I'm going to take Tua. And then I'm torn here. I mean, I should just take A-Chain. I'm going to take A-Chain. Was thinking about maybe going with Damian Harris to get a little more Buffalo correlation with Juju. But obviously, if I'm stacking Tua here, it makes more sense to just hit double Miami. So team works for me.
Yeah, I'm debating what I want to do here. I might just, should I push it at quarterback? I might push it at quarterback a little bit. Let's go ahead. I'm going to keep grabbing some Antonio Gibson in this range. We're going to grab another running back here.
Have you gotten any Chris Rodriguez at the end of drafts?
No, but he's been a hot topic of conversation in the Ship Chasing Discord channel lately. And I actually think it makes a lot of sense. I'm still in that territory right now where I do really want to avoid burning dead roster spots. But this is my thing on it. Like, I think Chris Rodriguez makes a lot of sense as a late round pick. The case for him is Bieniemy likes him a lot. This new regime, drafted him. Neither Antonio Gibson or Brian Robinson have really shown that they're going to be a full-blown bell cow. And the team has traditionally used a pass catching back in JD McKissick. And so Chris Rodriguez having that role is really valuable. Here's where I struggle with him as a selection right now. Even if we get news that he's going to have all the pass catching work, he probably moves up, 2 rounds? He's like a 16th round pick, And so I'm like, what do you win when you're right about Chris Rodriguez having a standalone role on this offense? Only a couple rounds. What do you lose if he's buried on this depth chart and it's just the Gibson, Brian Robinson show? Well, you burned a pick. And so to me, I'm just going to wait, get more confirmation throughout the preseason or even training camp. And if we continue to get that steady drumbeat on Chris Rodriguez, I'll be happy to start sprinkling him in. But I'm going to try to avoid that kind of unnecessary dead roster spot risk right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a little more risk to Brian Robinson and Gibson just because of the fact that they do have this decently steady drumbeat so far of them liking Rodriguez. But I still think the most likely outcome is that Robinson is better than we saw last year. Like, he was actually very good in college, and it was one thing that I kind of, I guess, had a blind spot to, where I liked him as a rookie coming in, but didn't really know how good he was in college. Like, he did jump out as both a pass catcher and a rusher. And again, getting shot in the butt, not a great way to start your rookie campaign. So I think there's room for him to be improved just by being full health and full, sanity and ready to go. But Rodriguez, though, I do feel like if you have a good amount of Robinson and a good amount of Gibson, I don't know, I would probably get 4% Robinson or Rodriguez, excuse me, over the course of the summer.
Yeah, I think, one thing too is, and this happened last year, the death of the standalone pass catching back. It was a couple years ago where I was always sprinkling in Nyheim Hines, JD McKissick, these guys who, yeah, you knew they weren't going to get goal line carries. They weren't going to ever get more than 20 touches a game or whatever, but you could count on them to catch a few balls, maybe have a couple of explosive plays and be part of a zero RB room. That's kind of like a dying breed now. You go through all of these players and there aren't a lot of those guys. So a guy like Chris Rodriguez emerging as a high floor pass catching option that also has a little of that, mystery box rookie juice to him, that would be a fun selection at the end of drafts as your 6th or 7th running back in a zero RB room.
Also, I thought this was an interesting chat. Where did it go? There was somebody asking about unique combos and are they a little bit over? Oh, here we go. Do unique combos actually matter, or is it just a fun talking point? I could say from a finals advancing team and having them on DK and on Underdog, you could see the advance rates a little more cleanly because they create content around it and give you the charts. But I could tell that I had like some chalky spots, and then I was like, oh, I need Cole Kmet to go off. I need Devin Singletary to go off. Like, you're trying to find these very minute own guys that nobody else in the field has. So I would say, Pete, that getting unique matters a lot for week 17, but probably matters less so throughout the course of the regular season.
Yeah, I hopped on the Badge Bros on Friday, and we actually talked about this in depth. I highly recommend checking that out. But my quick take on it is, I don't worry about it this early in the offseason because ADPs are going to shift enough that what you think is a chalk combo now might not be a chalk combo at the end. And the other thing here, let me make my selection here, and then I'll talk through this a little bit more. But the other thing too is, when you scoop up ADP values, you are also getting the unique combo element as well. Actually, I'm sorry, Spags. I don't think you're going to take Rodgers, so I can let that one go.
Yes.
What I do think I'm going to do is just go ahead and build out. I have kind of a New Orleans bet going with Olave, so I'm going to grab my guy Kendre Miller here.
Oh, Kendre, always looking good. I would have liked him to increase my New Orleans bet, but that's okay. I will take Jaylen Warren here, a regular pick for me. Oh boy, I'm on the clock on everything. And then I will also go, I'm thin enough at running back now that I do think I'm just going to, I'm going to continue to take a running back. I guess I'll take Jamal Williams, actually. I don't take him very much. This is a good time to do it because you took Kendre. So I have the bet on a little bit of Michael Thomas, so I'll try to maybe get Carr later on.
And I like Jamal Williams. I think I'm going to make a best ball tip video about this. And I do want to circle back to the unique combos thing. But so like on your room, like Devin Achane, he could be buried to start the season. Jaylen Warren could be buried behind Najee to start the season. A guy like Jamal Williams makes sense in a room like this, where if Kamara's suspended to start the season and maybe Kendre Miller is in the doghouse, he makes a mistake, like Jamal Williams will be getting touches right out of the gate. And so I think about those guys. In the video I was making is the running backs who I call the fast start running backs, like the guys I was going to name: AJ Dillon, Samaje Perine, Brian Robinson, Damian Harris, and Jamal Williams. Like, those are all guys going in that 105 to 125, 130 range, who I think you can bank on early season production. But going back to the combo thing. So the one point I just wanted to make is, I think a lot of times the conversation about the unique combos leads to people reaching massively to be like, oh, I'll take, Lamar and say Andrews at the 2-3 turn to pair with Jefferson, because a lot of people won't have that there. Well, the issue you run into is, one, then I see Pat post a team over the weekend where he got Lamar and Andrews at the 3-4 turn. And so now you have a team that also has an additional second round pick snuck in there. And then the other thing is you can get the uniqueness element by scooping ADP followers. Then you get the double whammy of an ADP value and a unique combo. So when in my draft yesterday, Josh Jacobs falls all the way to the 3-4 turn, not only am I getting, say, an early third round pick at the late third, I'm also getting him paired with CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. And he's very, very rarely going to be paired with those guys based on his ADP stuff. So if I'm hunting unique combos, I want to do it more through ADP value now. As the season progresses, I'm more open to it. Like an example last year was AJ Brown was a fixture of the 2-3 turn. He was just locked there. Him, T. Higgins, Tyreek were all going in that range, which meant he was very rarely being paired with a wide receiver at the 1-2 turn. I started to take AJ Brown at the 1-2 turn a little bit once that ADP was so solidified, but we're still at least 2.5 months from this contest filling. I think we're going to see a lot of movement. And I think you're playing a bit of a dangerous game just assuming ADP is solidified right now.
Yeah, I think I felt that with the Christian Watson thing where I've talked about on the Friday stream I did. I sometimes will take Justin Jefferson, and knowing that Christian Watson almost never falls to 47 or 48, I'm sure he does in some drafts I'm not in. I'll take Christian Watson in the 20 spot or the 20, 24, 25, wherever that is after the first pick. I'll take him there because I know that he's not likely to come back to me. That said, if he does start to fall in ADP because casual players like him less, that could be a common combo come August. And that's something that I'm willing to do here and there because I think there's still a good chance that it'll be unique. But I do think I could be wrong and Christian Watson can fall to 50 again. And it'll be like, oh shit, everybody's got Jefferson and Christian Watson everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's where it can backfire a little bit. Let's recap our teams here through 13 rounds or 12 rounds for us. So my team, I have a 1-5-5-1 build. I got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, 5 running backs. I might be done at running back. We'll see. Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, and Kendre Miller. My wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, and Rashad Bateman. Tight end, David Njoku. What are you working with, Spags?
I have Lamar and Tua both playing, of course, in week 17 at QB. Running back, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Achane, Jalen Warren, and Jamal Williams. So a little mix of youth and veterans there. Receiver, Amon-Ra, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, Michael Thomas, and Juju got hit by the Avalanche. Then a value, T.J. Hawkinson at tight end. So I feel like my team's okay, though maybe could have gone a little bit heavier at receiver earlier. But I don't know. I feel like there's still enough out there maybe to make it work.
Yeah. Let's see here. What am I going to do? All right. I think I know what I'm going to do.
It was something fun, I hope.
Well, I know you're not taking a quarterback. I'm going to debate. Well, you could potentially do 3 quarterbacks. The thing I was like, would you take Derek Carr as a 3 quarterback field? I don't really think you would. I'm going to take Jaden Reed and giving myself an out to either Derek Carr or Jordan Love as a quarterback selection here.
So I was looking at Jaden Reed as being my pick.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You know what? Let's get a little weird here. I wouldn't normally do this as a 3 QB build. Actually, you know what? I still don't think I will. I'll take a New Orleans correlation with Rashid Shaheed. And then I will also should probably take another running back here. I will take an old favorite, I guess, play the hits. Tyler Algier, welcome back. Not a guy I have a lot of this year. Actually gets taken from me a little bit before ADP a lot, but I still think he's got a good value and a good role and certainly should have some role even with Bijan being there.
Yeah, I was debating, honestly, Spags. I was like, I could go Shaheed and then for sure take Derek Carr, or I could go Jaden Reed and, go with the Jordan Love. I do want to get some more Jordan Love. I was just mentioning how I was looking more at their schedule, and they are a team I want to start betting on a little bit more. And I am a little light on Jordan Love right now. I think I was only at 4%. So this seems like a good time to boost that a bit. In a perfect world, you'd like to have Jordan Love stacked with Christian Watson, but my bet here with the Aaron Jones and the Jaden Reed selection, don't mind that. Maybe I even tack on one of those rookie tight ends in a 3 tight end build if I do that. A fun little narrative to this team, Spags, the Packers of old and the new look Packers, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love here.
Packers generations will be teams titling for his team here. But yeah, I think we're building solid teams. I don't mind it here. Definitely feel like could have gotten a little better at receiver, but for the most part, for these kind of rooms, of course, where we are doing them on stream and we expect there to be a good receiver run at some point early on. I feel like this team works pretty well. And I think we both got decently unique as well, relative to the builds. I don't think I have a team that looks like this one.
Yeah, we ended up, This ended up being a draft where we're clashing on a lot of fronts. One, we're picking back to back. So we're having to think through, like, I'm always thinking through, what are you going to do at the turn? Can I push a player there? And I even thought, like, you might take Derek Carr there, that would have been a consideration. That's why I was debating it. But then also, we found ourselves targeting similar games, right? Like, we both ended up on New Orleans. We both ended up on like Green Bay and some Minnesota stuff. So we've been tangling here at the same end of the draft board.
Yeah, I was bummed because I did really want Jaden Reed there, but I think it worked out well enough where Shaheed makes sense for me. Like, I think we both got things that make sense there. This is something I've been worrying about, or not worrying about, but wondering about, because obviously, Pete, like 2 out of 12 are going to advance in this room. Like, how many times do you think you and I will both advance in the same draft? Because I share a lot of your portfolio and vice versa now, that it was definitely a consideration for me over the weekend.
That'll be a fun thing to look at, to see our one, yeah, just our overall advance rates. And then I just by the pure odds of it, Spags, I think it will be unlikely that there's a room where we both advance, just based on pure mathematical
We
odds.
have
So
so many though. Like, we're gonna have like almost a third of your drafts. We keep at the same pace. Will be, not maybe not quite, but somewhere in that range.
yeah, yeah, we
There's
should
got to be at
do.
least one or two. I think we'll both advance in.
I think we can do the math on it, right? If we just say, if you and I advance at an average rate and we do X amount of drafts, what are the odds? So it'd be like my 1 out of 6 times your 1 out of 6, and then looking at the amount of drafts we do and seeing what the odds are that we would advance, assuming that we are advancing at an average clip. Someone do the math. I'll tell you how many drafts we're going to end up doing.
This is such a GA comment, by the way, 0%. I have never seen GA say anything positive about anything in our chat.
If I didn't know, I would think he's just a random egg troll, but then he watches literally every stream, and I know he loves us more than anything in his life.
And he's a member too. So at the end of the day, that's as long as you're lining Pete's pockets. That's
exactly. You get to say whatever you want if you throw money at me.
Okay. Sub 1% chance and 10 minutes a more positive guy. So I don't know. I just think we've had also some rooms that have been pretty objectively bad. Like last week, I think we had a really bad drafter in there that gave us some opportunity. So I think it depends. See, if we get a few more like those, I think our odds go up a little bit more.
All right. This is an interesting spot here. I do want to check. Okay. Wow. This was interesting. I was like, oh, I can sit on wide receiver here. I knew I was going to select Mecole Hardman. This has been such an avalanche draft that Mecole Hardman is at the top of the queue right now. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to get my double stack here with Aaron Rodgers, and then I'll see what you let come back to me.
Yeah, boy. I mean, I could use one more running back here, but Jesus, this is pretty gross. I will take Chuba here. Again, another nice, player should get some opportunity from the jump, hopefully. And then at receiver, I think I got to do something here. I'm going to reach for guys that I like because at this point, everything's depleted. Robert Woods at the top of the queue for receiver. So I'm just going to go up and get Darius Slayton, who I think has more of a role than people realize. And always a guy I use as my 18th round bailout. And today I'm using him in the 16th.
Yeah, you and I both forced to take wide receivers way ahead of ADP, but at this point in the draft, I don't think it's bad. I am going to select Gerald Everett here. The bye week bros are going to come after me. 2 tight ends with week 5 buys, but Gerald Everett, a huge slider here, 20 picks past ADP. I do have a bit of a Denver bet here with Jerry Jeudy. I like that cheap correlation there for week 16 or week 17. So and I might still entertain a 3 tight end build with this one, just with how many good available tight ends there are late. So I don't mind how that shook out.
Also, are you seeing the debate in the chat about the math here? I'm very much enjoying everybody going back and forth.
Can I make a confession?
Yeah.
So I normally, like on my best ball breakfast streams, and I would say 95% of my streams, I have the chat up and I read every comment. Today, the way I just like set up the draft board, I haven't seen a single chat. I don't have the chat open. So the only ones I've seen are the ones you've pulled up. For whatever reason, I just decided I wanted to take a break from the chat today, but do tell me what they're discussing.
So they're saying, okay, so I'm going to see who seems the most right. Chris seems the most adamant here. 2 out of 12 times 1 out of 11 for combined odds of 1 out of 66. So we would need to have 66 teams theoretically between us, with us drafting together to have one advance. But that assumes that we're advancing at the exact same flat rate. And I tend to think we have a little bit of a vig for us here because we're good drafters, hopefully.
Yeah, let's boost those numbers up here a little bit and say Spags and I are advancing at I don't know, a 25% clip.
Yeah, exactly. Or I would say even 1 out of 33. 1 out of 33 would mean that we would have one where we both advance, but then we go into separate pods after that. So it'd be like, all right, Pete, good luck. See you later. And then we'll both
Yeah.
get fucked in the semis.
It is going to be very fun to do some. Well, it won't be fun if I have an awful advance rate, but assuming I have an average or above average advance rate, it'll be very fun to look at various stream correlations. Do I have a better advance rate on Best Ball Breakfast? How about my random streams? What about the ones I do guest streams that tend not to be wide receiver avalanche rooms? Like when we did the 4for4 show together, or when I did the ETR, those were like relatively normal rooms. So it will be fun to slice and dice kind of my advance rates across the different stream types.
Yeah, actually, that will be funny because so if you guys are really enjoying these drafts, you really better hope Pete has some good advance rates for the splash play drafts. Otherwise, it'll be like, yeah, I got to do all the 4for4 drafts next year. That's the only thing I'll be doing.
No, it'll be there's no hiding this year. Like if I'm gonna have to air it out for good, for better, or for worse. Good advance rates, bad advance rates, it will all be here. But if you want to chase the glory of a $3 million team that was drafted on stream, you got to hang yourself out to dry.
I agree. And I would say too, that sometimes the advance rates aren't great because that was something where I felt like there was a little bit of social media advance rate shaming going on last season where like I had a lower advance rate than I think, definitely some of the people I saw tweeting things out there because I was building so many 0 RB teams. Like I kind of expected that going in and I ended up getting to the DK finals, went to the underdog finals. And like, I think it's still one of those things, Pete, where even if you looked like an asshole initially, because you're like, oh, you only got a 15% advance rate, you could end up the winner. And that could be hopefully a splash play team. Fingers crossed.
Well, one thing about that too, and I was talking about this with Neil Farley on Best Ball Breakfast. He came on in between drafts. He's been doing a lot of good data research and saying that if you not just auto drafted, in which case you'd be taking the guy at the top of the queue, but if you essentially auto drafted with structural concerns in mind, making the best selection by position in the top value, like you would probably have a very high advance rate because of just necessarily how powerful ADP value is. But a lot of people who have done that, like Herzig did that with 150 auto drafted puppy teams. He had an insane advance rate. Even our guy Eagles, I think, has traditionally had really good advance rates there. But then when you get to the playoffs, if you don't have that correlation, your teams fall flat on their face. And that's this whole push-pull. You can boost your advance rate just by selecting the values. But if you aren't getting that correlation in, you're not going to finish first out of 16 in your pod.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, my team was very correlated last year. Unfortunately, my BBM team was a little too correlated with Cincinnati and Buffalo, but I think that was still the right play and still a play that, I think that was the main thing that I observed is really teams that I would have felt maybe were too matchy were better than realized. On the clock here for me, there's really not a lot to love. So I am going to reach for Terrace Marshall here and get him and get one more receiver in to give me a 2-6-8-1 build. And then let's see, is Likely still around? Yeah, I'll take Isaiah Likely here to cap it off because I just got one more Lamar correlation in and really do not have a lot at receiver for Lamar, but I don't believe in that quite as much, Pete, but I got sniped and everything Baltimore related. That was good.
Man, I'm struggling finding something I like here. I kind of want to take another flyer wide receiver. Should I just get psyops into all this Justin Ross hype because the Athletic just has too much control over us?
Maybe not after the layoffs yesterday.
I really don't. I didn't like this click at all. Normally, I felt good at my positions. I was not doing 4 tight ends. I had 3 tight ends. I was good with my 2 quarterbacks. I guess I could have taken like Sam Howell there a little bit. I didn't have any slam dunk running backs I wanted to take. And I felt like with this build, an 8th wide receiver made sense. But I would have liked to have gotten a Minnesota piece as kind of a bring back with my big Green Bay thing. There were no Minnesota pieces that I liked there. I believe both McBride and Ty Chandler were gone. So I made the rare non-correlated week 18 pick or last round pick, which didn't feel good, Spags. I didn't have any options I liked.
You could have taken, no, you already had 3 tight ends. I was going to say maybe you could have taken Josh Oliver. I think that's my fun 18th round Minnesota guy to go to. They paid a lot of money to, and he should catch like a couple touchdowns.
I guess I could have, this could have been a case for a 4 tight end build where I tack on the Green Bay rookie tight end. I know. I know it. I couldn't do it. I refuse to let big tight end win, the Leones and the Dan Zacks of the world. Njoku, Everett, and Conklin is just enough. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't
No,
do it.
I think that, especially with Njoku, I think that felt like 3 was definitely more than enough there. But hey, if there were a time, this was the time. So of course, guys, if you're not subscribed to Pete's channel, do that right now. Pete's, of course, on the march to 15,000 subs. Leave a comment on the video if you want to get an entry to win a share. 3 people getting a share of $1,500 because of their comment entries. So do that. And of course, Pete, we will be doing a drunken show if Pete gets to 15,000 subs and Splash Play gets to 3,000 subs, guys. So a simple ask, Pete, for us to mildly embarrass ourselves on stream.
What is Splash Play at right now?
Almost 2,200. So we're
okay.
Yeah. So if you hit like roughly the same range, yeah.
So here's the deal. You guys know how this works on Tuesdays. Spags and I are going to do a final recap of our teams here. And then immediately following this, we are going to head over to the Splash Play channel for my 50th draft. I hope Spags got me a cake, maybe some streamers, anything to, celebrate this momentous occasion. But as Spags mentioned, the usual rules apply for both this draft and the draft on Splash Play. Leave a comment after. People, talk about getting commenting fatigue. I just want you guys to all shut up, because not only am I streaming all of these, I am replying to all of your comments on my channel. So you want to talk about commenting fatigue? I'm out here just engaging with all of you, just completely out of the goodness of my heart, not to juice the algorithm at all. So yes, leave a comment. That'll get you an entry. Then head over to Splash Play, leave a comment on that stream after. That'll get you another entry. And we're getting close, Spags. We are less than 1,200 subs away on my channel of hitting that 15K goal. And then we will do those drawings. And who knows, we'll even throw in a stretch goal once we hit that. So continue to subscribe, continue to comment, and we will march along toward our goals here.
Yeah, if you actually remembered to plug during the Siegel and Corain stream, you'd probably be doing even better.
Yeah, I'm awful at plugging, Spags. It's a gift that God gave you, and it eludes me for the most part.
Chill, boys. That's what we say. Do you want to give the team a reading here?
Yeah, you do yours first. I'm typing mine into my my thing here.
So my team, again, at QB, Lamar and Tua, running back, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Achane, Jalen Warren, Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier, and Chuba Hubbard. A receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, Michael Thomas, Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashid Shaheed, Darius Slayton, and Terrace Marshall. 2 guys I love late, by the way, if you ever are blown out of a room. And a tight end, TJ Hawkinson, Isaiah Likely. So I got my correlations for week 17. Got ahead of the Avalanche a little bit, then fought it off. So I feel good about where I landed.
Are you going to address the bye week bros for this week 13 disaster here at tight end?
I mean, honestly, I was thinking about rolling one tight end with Hawkinson, so that would be how I would push against it. But yeah, lucky week 13, I'll have 0 tight end points.
No, I think obviously Lamar is a guy that you don't have to have stacked up, and you do have him with Dobbins, but I do think I really likely becomes a priority target on Lamar teams where you don't have any of the wide receivers. I mean, I think you really do want that out there. So I like how this team shaped up for you. I think you devoted the right amount of capital to running backs. You did find yourself in a wide receiver avalanche spot. Like, this is the spot where I've been more stubborn to capitulate here to the Michael Thomas and Juju. Then the draft came back around. You got Shaheed at a nice price. This might have been a spot where I would have maybe tried to go to the running back spot and see if I could flip some 2v2s, but it gets tough there, when you only have 3 picks and then you're staring here. I guess the Michael Thomas one is fine. It's the Juju pick, I think, that gets really tough in a wide receiver avalanche room.
Yeah, I got it.
I haven't done mine here. So I ended up with the 2-5-8-3 build. We have the Jets of new and of yesteryear build, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love at quarterback. Our running backs kind of living in the dead zone in the tip of the 0 RB room here. Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, and Kendre Miller. Like that room there. Wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, Rashad Bateman, Jaden Reed, Mecole Hardman, Justin Ross. I like everything about this room, the correlation, the firepower, except the one-off Justin Ross pick, which just sticks out like a sore thumb. No correlation, no method to the madness, just a fucking rogue pick, influenced by the Athletic. I hate myself for it already. My tight ends are fine here. Njoku as the bring back with the Jet stuff. Gerald Everett way past ADP correlated with Judy, and Tyler Conklin getting that triple stack with Rodgers. I like everything about this team except this goddamn Justin Ross pick.
But what if Justin Ross, Pete, is the player you need in week 17?
What if? I mean, if you read The Athletic, apparently he is the second coming of Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs. So,
And also Patrick Mahomes' actual firstborn son. It sounds like they are really best buddies striving through life. And speaking of, we are going to go head over to the Splash Play channel. We have to put up the big celebration banner for Pete's number 50 here, of course. So I'm excited here. Peter, you excited? And give whatever plugs you got to hit here, because I know you're doing a club draft, right? A cardio club with the club.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So today, my usual Tuesday schedule, head over to Splash Play for my 50th draft. Then at 3:30, I'll be doing my office hours in the Fantasy Life Discord if you guys want to come and hang out and talk best ball and fantasy in there. And then, yeah, we're going to do a cardio club draft. I didn't want to host while doing cardio. I think that would just be too much. So I am bringing my buddy Mike Zakarian from Team Hold to guest host that show while Andy, Clay, and I draft a BBM 14 while doing cardio. So got to get all my equipment set up. I'm going to build up a splash zone this time because I just sweated all over my desk and keyboard. So if you want to watch me heavily pant while making selections, the club this afternoon is the place to be.
Normally that'd be an OnlyFans deal. You know, you could just like do a light jog. You don't have to sprint.
You know what? It's hard for me to half-ass anything in my life, Spags. You know, if I'm going to do cardio, I might as well get a good workout in.
Fair enough. So Pete won't half-ass it later on today. We'll see you guys in 1 minute on the Splash Play channel. Go over there or be automatically